Like I said, my name's Harriet Minter. I'm a journalist and broadcaster, and that's 50% of my time. So 50% of my time I write mainly about women and work, which is really quite a niche. I didn't mean to make my life quite that specific, but that's how it turned out. The other 50% of the time, I actually work as a trainer and coach. So I work with women to kind of help them be their best selves at work, at home, everywhere else in between. And I'm going to share some of the stuff that I've learnt and how I got there with you. So I'll take you back about 8 years ago. It's 8 years ago. I'm lying to myself. It's not 7 anymore. It's now 8 years ago. 8 years ago, and I had just started working at The Guardian, which, if you're a journalist, is basically about as good as life gets, right? Not only because it's a really lovely big brand and everyone's very nice and it's all very sociable and you feel like you're on the right side of the papers, the left side, but also the right side, but also because there's, free canteen and everyone's lovely. So I just started working there, and I've been working as what we call a launch editor, which is essentially somebody gives you an idea and you make that idea happen. So somebody would say, we want to set up a section on The Guardian's website for people who work in local government. Go and make that happen. And so I'd work out what that looked like, what we would talk about, who the right people to work on it were, the kind of issues we'd want to cover, and I'd bring everything together and I'd get it up and running and we'd launch it, and I'd hang around with it for a couple of weeks and then I'd go off and do something else. And I did this for about 2 years, and at the end of 2 years I hit this rather strange thing, which was I'd run out of things to launch. There was nothing left to do, so I sort of didn't really have a job. And I kept coming into the office because nobody told me not to. And I sort of kept turning up every day thinking something would appear, and it didn't. And one day I sat down with my boss and I said, I'm really appreciating this downtime, it's lovely, but I'm a bit worried that unless I do something soon, you're not going to want to keep me anymore. What should I do? And he said, oh, you know what, Harriet, there's a point in everyone's career where it's just a bit quiet. Enjoy the peace and quiet. Have a nice time, go talk to some people, find out what else is going on in the business, but just enjoy this downtime. Little did he know how dangerous that would be. Because when left to my own devices, I like to stick my nose in stuff. So I went round the building talking to people as he'd instructed me to, and I learnt something really interesting. I learnt that every time we wrote anything about women and work, it did really, really well. But we had absolutely no strategy around it. So sometimes we'd write stuff, then we wouldn't write anything for months. We'd cover things that no one was talking about. We'd miss the things everyone was talking about. So I thought, this feels like an opportunity. So I created a business plan. I've come in at the end of today and I've seen lots of talks about kind of organisation and structure and planning. That is not me. So for me, creating a business plan, which is all about organisation and structure and planning, was very stressful. But I did it. I created a business plan. I took it to my boss. I said, I've had this idea. I think it's going to be great. I think we should talk about women and work, and we should launch a whole section all about it. And I pushed the business plan across the desk towards him. And he looked down at it. He looked back up at me, and he said, no, I don't think so, and pushed it back. Now, at this point of the story, I always have to caveat it with my boss is a very nice man, etc., etc. He just comes out badly in this story, which is about being on the right side of history, right? So he just refused to look at it. He refused to engage with the idea. He wasn't interested in it. He didn't want to know anything about it. And I was really angry. I was really, really angry because I'd worked so hard on this plan. I'd worked so hard on it, and he wouldn't even look at it. And so I did the number one thing that you should absolutely not do when you're furious with your boss. I went around the building telling everyone how furious I was with him. And in the course of those conversations, I got chatting to a woman who worked in our events team. And she said, you know what, I've been trying to do an event on this topic for a really long time. But every time I suggest it, I get a no. Why don't you and I team up and we'll do an event together? And maybe it'll be a huge success. And if it's not, we can just blame the other one, and that's okay. So we teamed up, And we came up with an event, we got some speakers together, we booked a room in the Guardian under a code name, and then we called one of our friends who worked on another section and said, can you put a little advert on the website for us? They did. And 48 hours after that advert went up, the event had sold out. And when it had sold out, I went back to my boss and I said, look, I know that you didn't want me to do this, but I've kind of put this event together. It's kind of been a bit of a success. I would really love it if you would just come along. Come along, and if you absolutely hate it, fair enough, I'll never mention it again. So he came along to the event, and he was the only man in a room of 120 women. Hello, man in the corner there. And only man in a room of 120 women. And at the end of it, I said to him, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? He said, yeah, I did. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. But there was one thing that was a bit strange for me. I said, okay, what was that? He said, well, I really wanted to ask a question. But because I was the only man in the room, I felt like I couldn't. Is that what it's like to be a woman? And I said, well, yeah, sometimes. Sometimes that's what it's like to be a woman. She said, oh, okay, I get it now. I get it. Yes, we should definitely do this. And 6 weeks later, we launched a section called Women in Leadership, which was all about women and work. And it was the most successful launch in The Guardian's history. We built the most successful newsletter in The Guardian's history. It was a really, really big success. But it only happened because of two things. One, I was lucky enough to meet somebody who had a similar idea and who wanted to work on it with me and who was happy to split the risk. So that's the first thing. I met somebody who would do it with me. It's much less scary doing anything with somebody else than it is by yourself. And the second thing was that she very wisely said, let's not do your big plan of a huge, exciting, whole new section we have to fill with loads of stuff. Let's just start small and test. Let's just start with one event once and see what happens. And we did. And that's what we started with. And when it was a success, we knew that we could grow from there. And when we had done these things, I went to my boss and I said, after we'd launched, are you excited that this happened? Are you pleased that it's happened? He said, yeah, Harriet, I'm pleased. He said, but I knew you were going to do something like this. I said, well, how did you know that I was going to do it? What do you mean? He said, I knew when I told you to go off and just enjoy a bit of quiet time and learn some things, I knew something was going to come from it. I said, well, why? And he said, well, because of that sticker you've got on your computer. I hadn't really thought about it. But way back, on my very, very first day at The Guardian, I had attended a talk, a little bit like this one, given by a woman who ran a social enterprise in Africa. And when she was talking about how she built it up, she said that there had been one thing that had kept her going when it seemed like everyone was against her. And that had been her motto of proceed until apprehended. And I had loved that so much that I had written it on a post-it and I had stuck it on my computer. And then I'd done what we all do with the very important stuff that we write on post-its and stick on our computer. I'd ignored it for pretty much 2 years. But it had subliminally gone in, and I'd realised that actually, sometimes when somebody tells you no, or they don't give you the guidance, or they don't tell you what you should be doing, but you can just get on with it anyway, they'll come round in the end. And then they'll tell you that they knew you were going to do it all along, and really they totally foresaw the whole thing, which they did not. So I ran Women in Leadership for 4 years in total. And I was really lucky when I was doing that I met some incredible, incredible women and learned a lot from them. So I'm going to pass on a couple of stories that I've learned, a couple of things that I've learned from them. The first one was when we ran an event, and we were really lucky enough to run an event with Sheryl Sandberg. Hilariously, this came about, Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, came about because a man on our news desk had received an email from a friend of 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 his, saying she was going to be in the UK and she'd love to come in and meet us. And he hadn't really known who she was. So he just called me and said, I've got this woman and I think she might want to do an event, but we're a newspaper. We don't really do that, do we? And I was like, well, we do have a whole department, but never mind, go on. And he was like, yeah, so I'm going to send her your way. It's Sheryl Sandberg. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. Thank you. So she came and did this event, and the week leading up to the event was the most stressful week of my entire life. Every day, from pretty much the second I woke up till the second I went to bed, I was being sent emails about Cheryl's visit and the things that had to be sorted before she arrived. Things like the exact height of the car lift going to the car park. I did not know that was a thing, but apparently cars get stuck sometimes. Now, my response was, I'm pretty certain they wouldn't have built it if they thought a car was going to get stuck in it, but nonetheless, we still had to check the height and then call Mercedes so we could check the height of the car she was arriving in, make sure it fitted. Sourcing free-range turkey for the free-range turkey sandwiches, sorting the exact amount of Diet Coke, etc., etc. Events organisers in the room, you deal with this on a daily basis. You are saints. I don't know how you do it. Anyway, she arrived, and she turned up, and I was so excited. And she turned up, and she arrived in a Juicy Couture tracksuit, because she'd literally got off the plane. And she came in, and she said, I don't want to come in through the main entrance, because, you know, I'm in a tracksuit, I don't want to see anyone. I said, no, it's fine, fine. So she came in through the back. She was with us for a total of 3 hours. In those 3 hours, she did the following. Got changed into a lovely little Roland Mouret dress, very big heels, came up, ran a mentoring circle with 15 women, did a meet and greet for 50 people, signed 200 books, and then did an hour on stage with one of our journalists in front of 400 people. More than I generally achieve in about a month, right? And when she left, and it was all a bit of a whirlwind, I remember thinking, well, that's why she's Sheryl Sandberg, because she can do all that in the amount of time. And it was only when I looked back at it that I realised there was something really specific that had happened. So she'd come into the building in her Juicy Couture tracksuit and got changed into her Roland Mouret dress. I just happen to love the brands, that's why I'm telling you. But she'd had somebody who literally helped her out of the tracksuit and into the dress. And then she'd come and run a mentoring circle, but she'd run it with somebody. So when she had to leave, there was somebody there to still answer questions, make sure everyone felt they'd been listened to. She did a meet and greet for 50 people, but she had 10 people in the room with her, so that somebody was talking to the people at every minute. So it felt like they had lots of attention. And she signed 200 books, but she had somebody on this side who opened the book, passed it in, she signed it, and somebody on this side who took the book and closed it. In short, she did all that in 3 hours, yes, but not because she is Sheryl Sandberg. She did it because she was surrounded by people who could help her. She had created her own personal team, what I like to think of as her own personal board. And it's very easy to do that when you're a multimillionaire and your then husband started one of the biggest tech companies. Very easy. But actually, we can all do it. And you all need to create your own personal board, your own board of people who are around you to help you in the areas that you need some help in. And I will give you some of mine. So I have, for example, sorry, anyone in the audience Scottish? I'm about to use a Scottish stereotype. I'm so sorry, but it just happens to be very true in this case, okay? So my godmother is Scottish, and she is on my personal board as my head of finance, because she is very, very tight with her money. I am very, very much a spendthrift, and I'll throw it around everywhere. But she is the person that I call when I need a great deal, when I need somebody to tell me, no, that's a ridiculous thing to spend your money on, do not do it. When I need somebody to check what my accounts look like and what I need some help with. She's my head of finance. My best friend is head cheerleader, because I call her up when I'm having a bad day and I think I'm rubbish at everything and nothing's going to go right and I'm never, ever, ever going to work again and what am I going to do? And I call her up and she reminds me of all the things that I have accomplished, all the things that I have done, and all the things that I can do. She's my head cheerleader. I am not a natural athlete. I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear. Not a natural athlete. So I have a head of health and fitness, which is to say you don't always have to have somebody in your friendship group. You can hire So I've hired, totally accidentally, London's handsomest personal trainer, and he's my head of health and fitness. He gets me out of bed at 6 a.m. every morning, sadly not literally, to go and run around the park. So think about what are the areas of your life that you need some help with, and who can you put in place there to support you? Because actually we all need that support, regardless of who we are and what we're doing. Sometimes you cannot do it alone, and you need to be able to outsource it to other people. And then when you've done that, have a think about whose personal board you are on, because you almost certainly are, and you need to give back as much as you get. So that was what I learned from Sheryl Sandberg. The second lesson that I'm going to share with you, I'm just check on my time. Second lesson that I'm going to share with you is about one I learned about 2 months after that, when I was really lucky that we had a woman called Arianna Huffington who came into the office to talk to us. So Arianna Huffington, founder of Huffington Post, totally amazing woman. And when I met her, she was mid-60s, and she was more up to date on every single piece of technology than anyone in the building. I mean, amazing, amazing woman. And she'd come in to talk about her book called Thrive, which is all about work-life balance. Between us, the irony of it, she'd written a book called Thrive about work-life balance. Everyone I know who has worked for her says it's not as great in reality as it is in the book. But she knows the theory. So she'd come in to talk about that. And she was doing an interview. She's doing an on-camera interview with me. But I said to her, while you're in the building, could you also possibly come and do Guardian Morning Conference? Morning Conference is basically where all the journalists get in a room together and they talk about the stories of the day. And it's a bit of a bun fight. Journalists are not particularly shy and retiring people, so they just throw questions in left, right, and centre. They can be quite deeply cynical, so you'll get somebody quite important in the room that will be like, yeah. It's quite, if you go in, it's quite a hostile environment, honestly. So in Swan's Arianna, and the room is packed. Everyone wants to hear from her, so it's completely packed. And she starts talking. And as she starts talking, the room gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And you see people leaning forward, completely rapt by what she's saying. And when it gets to questions, rather than just jumping in, everyone very politely raises a hand. Everyone's in awe of her. And finally, when she's finished talking and she's finished taking questions, they give her a round of applause. The only other person to ever get a round of applause in Guardian Morning Conference was David Attenborough. That's the level of national treasure we're talking, right? And when she'd finished and she'd done her interview and she'd left, and I looked back on it and I thought, what did she do? What did she do that made everyone so in awe, that kept everyone so spellbound while she was talking? And I realized she did one really, really simple thing that we all do every single day. She breathed. So when she was asked a question, rather than just responding, she'd take a breath, and then she'd reply. She didn't hurry. She didn't feel she had to fill the silence. In fact, she was really, really comfortable with it. She could hold a silence and just let people be in it. I always like to see how long I can get away with on that one. It's an amazing trick. It is a really, really amazing trick. Just the ability to hold a silence. And we find it really difficult and really uncomfortable. But if you use that gap to actually just breathe, you can make people wait with you. And you can have a level of authority that you might not have had at the beginning of that conversation. I use it all the time. It's really, really good. It's particularly good if you go, I have a thought on that. And everyone waits to know what it was. The only caveat to that is that it does then have to be quite a good thought, but it's brilliant in meetings. It's particularly brilliant if you are with somebody who really wants to dominate a conversation. Just sitting back, letting them talk, and then saying, I'm just going to say one thing, taking a breath, making them wait, and then say it. I learned that from Arianna Huffington. And that idea of breathing and how we use our breath is really, really important to me. Partly because actually when I was growing up I had really terrible asthma. I was officially the 8th worst asthmatic in the country. My mother was very proud, thank you. And so I actually had to really properly learn how to breathe. And as an adult, I had to learn it all over again. It's a very weird thing when you realize that you haven't been breathing properly for about 28 years. And I learned how to breathe in a yoga class. So, my then flatmate sent me an email and said, Harriet, great news. I've got this amazing Groupon deal, 10 yoga classes for £10. I've signed us all up. We're going on Sunday. I've never been to a yoga class really in my life. I was like, yeah, sounds great, lovely, group outing. Off we go. So we went to this yoga class. Unfortunately, she had not read the T's and C's correctly, and we didn't go to the beginner's yoga class. We went to the advanced power yoga class. Anyone who's ever been to an advanced power yoga class knows it's not really the place to be if you've never done any yoga. But there we are, we're in this advanced power yoga class. About 20 minutes in, I come to the very real conclusion that I am going to die. I'm bright red, I'm sweating, I've got sweat dripping on the mat. I'm just feeling so humiliated. So humiliated. And along comes the teacher and she says, right, and now we're all going to take a shoulder stand. Now apparently a shoulder stand is a very relaxing yoga pose. Not for me. Because for a start, my bum is just too heavy. I don't have the stomach muscles to counteract my bum. It's not going in the air. So along comes the teacher and she says, would you like some help? I'm like, oh, yes, I would. I mean, maybe I'd like where the door is, but help would be great. And she's like, okay, well, just stay here. And she picks up my ankles and she pulls my ankles up into the air and puts me in this shoulder stand. What neither of us had really foresawn from this is that gravity works against you in a shoulder stand, right? And particularly if you are a woman with slightly outsized breasts. Gravity really works against you. In fact, what gravity will do is it will take your breasts and position them over your face to the point that you are suffocating yourself. It's yoga's answer to autoerotic asphyxiation, right? So there I am, suffocating, snorting away. I'm thinking, yes, it's just the worst experience of my life. I can never, ever come back here again. Never. We finally get out the class, and I say to my flatmate, you are tidying for the rest of the year. And I think to myself, well, thank God that is over, and I will lose the £9. I don't care. I am not going back. Not going back. Weirdly, next Sunday, there I am again. And I don't know what had happened in the intervening days. Somehow, part of my brain had thought, maybe next time it will be better. Maybe that was, the opposite of beginner's luck, and this time it's going to be, I'm going to get it, right? I'm going to get it. I'm going to be better at it. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's not better the second time. So I go through the whole second class again. It's humiliating again. I leave bright red, just think this is so awful. I can never, ever, ever go back. But there was a little part of me that was quite proud that I hadn't got through just one, I got through 2 of those classes. And that little part said, maybe we could get through a 3rd one. So I went back again and again and again and again till it became a regular Sunday thing. I've been doing yoga now for roughly 3 years. I still cannot do a shoulder stand. I'm still the worst person in the class, apart from one week where a woman turned up who was equally bad as me but didn't know her left from her right, so she was just a little bit worse. But other than that, I'm always the worst person in the class. I always humiliate myself in some way, shape or form. I've literally fallen on my face more times than I can count. But what's happened is that 1 hour a week on that mat, roughly this size, has become my safe space in which to practice failing. I go to every single class knowing that I'm probably going to fail in it, and that that is okay. Because that is my space to practice. It's my space to practice being really, really bad at something and enjoying it. And a weird thing happened when I practiced failing. I actually became really unafraid of it. In fact, I kind of started to enjoy it. So much so that I took it into all the other areas of my life. So I took it into my pay negotiations, and I would just ask for ridiculous amounts of money because I didn't care. I never got the really ridiculous ones, but I certainly ended up higher than I thought I was going to. I would go up and talk to somebody in a bar just because, who cares, right? It made me really unafraid of what could happen. In fact, I would say it made me brave. And we all need to be a little bit brave in every single area of our lives. And we don't set aside time to practice it. Because like any skill, it needs time to be developed. And if you practice it, strange things happen. Strange things like a year after your first yoga class, you will suddenly find yourself on a 7-day yoga retreat. And you'll be on this retreat, and the teacher will come up to you and she will say, "Do you want to do a handstand?" And you'll say, no, I'm fine. There's absolutely no way I can do a handstand. And she said to me, "Well, that wasn't the question. I didn't ask, can you do a handstand? I asked, do you want to do a handstand?" And I really, really did. So I put my hands on the ground. Don't worry, people on the front row, I'm not about to replicate it now. Put my hands on the ground, kicked one leg up, kicked the other leg up, had her hold me. And there I was in Portugal in this handstand. And just for a minute, my whole world flipped upside down. And so I want all of you, I hope, to take something useful from this talk, but also to take the knowledge that if you practice just being a little bit brave, just occasionally, you too can flip your whole world upside down anytime you like. Thank you very much.
Thank you.